Your soulmate broke down crying in a voice message. Please listen before I leave. Jesus says you are not here by accident. This message has found you at the exact moment your soulmate is breaking down in a room somewhere, clutching their phone, terrified you will never hear what they recorded. They cried through every word of that voice message, and something in your spirit already knows this. You felt a sudden wave of sadness wash over you last night without any reason. Your chest tightened unexpectedly, and a name you have never spoken aloud pressed against your heart like a forgotten prayer. That was their emotion traveling across the spiritual cord that binds you, reaching you before their words ever could. Jesus says they recorded it at 3:33 in the morning, the hour when the veil between souls is thinnest. Their hands were shaking so badly they had to restart the recording 7 times, each attempt ending in sobs they could not control. And now that message is sitting unsent, hanging in the space between their heart and yours, waiting for a divine intervention you must choose to activate. You need to understand the depth of what is happening right now. This is not an ordinary emotional moment or a fleeting thought passing through your mind. This is a spiritual emergency unfolding in real time across the invisible thread that God Himself wove between your souls before you were born. Jesus says they whispered your name into the microphone between sobs. Not a name they read somewhere, not a name they guessed, but a name they have known in their spirit since childhood. They have been dreaming about you for years, waking up with your voice echoing in their memory, unable to explain to anyone why they feel married to someone they have not yet held. And now they are at a breaking point. Something happened yesterday that pushed them to the edge, something involving another person who does not want this connection to survive. A force has been working against your union, whispering lies into your soulmate's ear, convincing them that you do not exist or that you have already moved on. Jesus says you need to understand this enemy because it is real. This is not a metaphor or a vague spiritual concept. There is someone in your soulmate's life who has sensed the power of your connection and has been actively sabotaging it for months. This person envies what you and your soulmate share. They have never experienced a bond this pure, this divinely orchestrated, this unbreakable. And because they cannot have it, they have dedicated themselves to destroying it. Your soulmate is not weak. They are not naive or easily manipulated. But they are exhausted from fighting a battle they do not fully understand, a battle that has been waged against them on emotional, psychological, and spiritual levels simultaneously. Jesus says the voice message was recorded immediately after a confrontation. This person, this blocker, this enemy of your divine union, told your soulmate that their belief in you is delusional. They mocked the dreams, dismissed the signs, and demanded that your soulmate let go of the fantasy of ever finding you. And your soulmate, overwhelmed and isolated, ran to their room. They locked the door behind them, collapsed onto their knees, and opened their voice recorder because they had no other way to reach you. That message is a lifeline, and you are the only one who can grab the other end before it slips into silence forever. Jesus says you must protect your soulmate right now through an act of faith that moves the spiritual realm. This is why your soulmate needs your protection right now, because the attack against them has intensified in the last 24 hours. The enemy of your connection sensed that you were beginning to awaken to this bond, and they accelerated their efforts to sever it permanently. Your soulmate's emotional state is fragile in this moment. They are questioning everything, including their own sanity, because the person blocking them has been so relentless and so convincing. They are crying as they replay the recording, wondering if they should even send it, wondering if you would even care if you heard it. This is where your faith becomes the weapon that defends them. You are constantly thinking about them, how to protect them, how to save them, and how to finally build your life together. You love your soulmate deeply, and deep inside, you know this love did not come by chance, it was placed in your heart for a divine reason. But thoughts alone do not move mountains, faith in Jesus does. Sow your protection seed now by sending a coffee on Ko-fi. This is not just a gift, it is an act of worship that invites God's hand into your love story. The link to your breakthrough is in the description, and every second you stay silent, something is moving against your love. Act now, send 4, 6, or 10 or more coffees as your seed of protection. After sending, write, "Protect my soulmate, Lord," on the Ko-fi page. The link is in the description or bio of this video. Over 1,000 people have already received their soulmate by sowing coffee as a seed for their love and future together, and Jesus will hear your prayers once you complete these steps. Step in faith now, before this video ends, because only you can save your soulmate and your future together. The spiritual transaction you make in this moment creates a shield around your soulmate that the enemy cannot penetrate. Your seed of faith is the legal right God needs to dispatch angels into your soulmate's room right now. Jesus says they keep touching the send button but something holds them back. It is the spirit of fear that the enemy has planted around them like a prison wall. Your prayer and your seed of protection will shatter that wall and give them the courage to release the message into your life. You need to understand what is in that voice message. It is not just words, it is the raw, unfiltered cry of a soul that has been searching for you across lifetimes. They confess in the recording that they have felt you in every sunset they watched alone, every song that made them cry without explanation, every empty space in their bed that their arms instinctively reached for. They talk about the ring they imagined on their finger. Not a hypothetical ring, but the specific ring they believe you will place there one day. They have sketched it, dreamed about it, and they describe it in the message with such detail that you will recognize it when you finally see it. Jesus says they apologize in the recording for not being strong enough to wait. They believe they are failing you by being so broken, so desperate, so exhausted from the fight. They do not realize that their tears are not weakness but the purest form of love you will ever encounter. Your soulmate is not the problem. They are the victim of a calculated spiritual attack designed to make them feel unworthy of you. The enemy whispers that you are too good, too far away, too busy, too successful, too out of their league. And your soulmate, in their vulnerability, has started to believe some of these lies. They say in the voice message that maybe the blocker is right, maybe they should give up, maybe you deserve someone less complicated. But even as they say it, their voice cracks with resistance because their spirit knows the truth. Jesus says the spiritual cord between you vibrated when they said those words. You felt a sudden urge to cry around the same time, and you did not know why. Now you know, it was your soul receiving the distress signal of the one who was made to complete you. This is not a fairy tale or a fantasy. This is the spiritual reality that God designed before the foundations of the earth. You and your soulmate were not an afterthought or a random pairing in a chaotic universe. Jesus says He personally chose your soulmate for you. He knew exactly what your heart would need, what wounds would require healing, what joy would require sharing. And He handcrafted another soul with the precise texture to fit against yours like two halves of a divine sculpture. But the enemy hates what God designs. And the enemy specifically hates unions that carry prophetic destiny, unions that will produce something powerful for the kingdom. Your union with your soulmate is one of those high-threat unions, and that is why the attack has been so vicious. They are going through something you cannot see, but you can still protect them through your faith. Sow your protection seed now by sending a coffee on Ko-Fi, and let your act of faith become the sword that cuts through the enemy's plans. The link is in the description, and your soulmate's breakthrough is waiting on your obedience. Every coffee you send is a seed that God multiplies into protection, clarity, and courage for the one you love. After sending, write, "Protect my soulmate, Lord," on the Ko-Fi page, because your written declaration seals the spiritual transaction. Over 1,000 people have already stepped into their divine union by sowing this seed, and your testimony is next. Do not delay, because delay in the spiritual realm creates distance in the physical realm. The enemy is counting on your hesitation, your doubt, your procrastination. He knows that if he can keep you passive, he can keep your soulmate isolated and vulnerable. Jesus says your soulmate is pacing their room right now. They are checking their phone repeatedly, looking for a sign, any sign, that you are real and that you care. They do not know that the sign they are waiting for is your faith in action, your prayer, your seed of protection. You are the answer to the prayer they prayed at 2 a.m. last night. They knelt beside their bed, tears streaming down their face, and they asked God for proof that you exist. They begged for a signal, a shift, a feeling, something that would tell them not to give up. And God, in His mercy, led you to this video. This message is the answer to that prayer. You are the living proof that your soulmate's faith has not been in vain. Jesus says the voice message ends with 7 words that will shatter your heart and rebuild it simultaneously. Your soulmate, after minutes of sobbing confession, after pouring out their soul into a digital recording, whispers these 7 words. And those 7 words are now suspended in the atmosphere, traveling toward you through the spiritual realm, seeking a landing place in your heart. You will know those 7 words when you hear them. They will unlock something inside you that has been dormant, something that no other person has been able to reach. Those words are the key to a door you did not even know was locked inside your soul. Jesus says you must prepare your heart to receive them. Because those words will change everything. They will mark the end of your old life and the beginning of the life you were always meant to live. But preparation requires action. Faith without works is dead, and your soulmate needs your works of faith right now. They need you to fight in the spiritual realm while they are too weak to fight for themselves. Type 333 to receive the blessings being released over your divine connection right now. Type 777 if you feel this message resonating in your spirit and you know it is for you. Type 1111 to say thank you to God for leading you to this revelation about your soulmate. Jesus says your soulmate's tears are being collected in heaven. Not one tear they have shed over you has gone unnoticed. Every drop is a prayer, and every prayer is being answered in this moment through your willing heart. You need to understand the identity of the blocker more clearly. This is not just a jealous ex or a controlling friend. This is someone who has positioned themselves as a spiritual gatekeeper over your soulmate's life, and they are abusing that position. They have convinced your soulmate that their spiritual experiences are just emotions. They have dismissed every dream, every vision, every supernatural nudge as psychological noise. And they have done this deliberately to keep your soulmate from recognizing the divine signs pointing to you. Jesus says this blocker has a name and a face that your soulmate sees every day. It may be a family member who claims to want what is best. It may be a friend who has always been threatened by your soulmate's potential for happiness. It may even be someone who once loved your soulmate selfishly and cannot bear to see them love another. But whoever it is, they are not more powerful than the blood of Jesus. And they are not more powerful than the faith that God is awakening in you right now. Your soulmate broke down in that voice message not just because of sadness. They broke down because of the suffocating pressure of living under someone else's control. They feel like a bird in a cage, and the cage door is locked from the outside by someone who claims to be protecting them. Jesus says this is spiritual abuse. Your soulmate is being spiritually abused, and they do not even have the vocabulary to name it. They just know they feel trapped, confused, and desperate for an escape they cannot see. You are that escape. Your love is the key that unlocks the cage. But you must turn the key through deliberate spiritual action, not just wishful thinking. This is your final moment to protect this connection before it slips away. Sow your protection seed now by sending a coffee on Ko-Fi, and let your faith become the prison break your soulmate desperately needs. The link to your breakthrough is in the description, and every second of hesitation gives the enemy more time to reinforce the cage. Send 4, 6, or 10 or more coffees as your declaration of war against the forces blocking your union. After sending, write, "Protect my soulmate, Lord," on the Ko-Fi page, and watch how heaven moves in response to your obedience. Over 1,000 souls have already testified that this act of faith was the turning point in their love story. Jesus says something shifted in the spiritual realm the moment you clicked on this video. Principalities that were assigned to block your union felt a tremor of fear. They know that when you align your faith with your actions, their power over your soulmate begins to crumble. Your soulmate is feeling that shift right now. Even though they do not know you are watching this, even though they cannot see you, their spirit is beginning to calm. The anxiety that was choking them 10 minutes ago is loosening its grip because you are stepping into your role as their spiritual protector. Jesus says they just looked at their phone again. This time, a small flicker of hope crossed their face. Something inside them whispered, "Do not delete the message yet, something is happening, just wait a little longer." That whisper was the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit is responding to the faith you are exercising right now. Your spiritual posture determines their emotional survival, and you cannot afford to fail them in this critical hour. You need to understand the timeline you are working against. Your soulmate has set a mental deadline. They told themselves that if they do not receive a sign by a certain point, they will delete the message and try to move on. Jesus says that deadline is closer than you think. It is not weeks or months away. It is a matter of hours, perhaps even minutes, depending on how intense the enemy's pressure becomes. The blocker is going to check on them soon. They will knock on the door and ask why your soulmate has been locked in their room for so long. And if your soulmate has not felt a spiritual breakthrough by then, they may surrender to the pressure and abandon hope. You are racing against a clock you cannot see. But the God who controls time is on your side. And He is giving you this warning because He wants you to win, He wants your soulmate to win, He wants your union to glorify His name. Type 333 again if you are ready to fight for this love with everything you have. Type 777 if you commit to being the spiritual warrior your soulmate needs in this battle. Type 1111 if you are grateful that God trusted you enough to reveal these mysteries to you. Jesus says your soulmate mentions a specific date in the voice message. It is a date that holds significance for both of you, even though you may not immediately recognize why. It may be the date you first dreamed of each other, the date you almost crossed paths in the physical world, or the date that heaven designated for your official union. That date is a marker. It is a spiritual landmark that the enemy has been trying to erase. But God is restoring it to your memory now so that you will understand the precision of His planning. Your soulmate cries hardest when they mention this date. Because they believed something would happen on that date, and when it did not, a part of their hope died. They do not know that the delay was caused by the blocker's interference, not by your absence of love. Jesus says you need to reclaim that date. You need to declare that the enemy's delay tactics are broken. And you need to send your seed of protection as a statement that you will not tolerate any more interference with heaven's timeline for your union. Sow your seed now, and let it be your declaration that the appointed time for your union will not be delayed any longer. The link is in the description, and your soulmate's destiny is wrapped up in your decision to act. You love your soulmate deeply, and love always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails, and your love will not fail your soulmate in this critical hour. Every coffee you send is a seed of perseverance that declares to the enemy, I will outlast you, I will outlove you, I will outfight you. And the God of angel armies will back your declaration with supernatural reinforcement. Jesus says your soulmate is now sitting on their bed with the phone in their hands. They have stopped crying for a moment, not because the pain is gone, but because a strange peace is beginning to settle over them. That peace is the direct result of your prayers, your faith, and your willingness to act on their behalf. They do not understand what is happening. They just know that for the first time in weeks, they do not feel completely alone. Your spiritual intervention is creating an atmosphere of hope in a room that was filled with despair just moments ago. You need to intensify your spiritual engagement now. Do not let this momentum fade. The enemy will try to counterattack, to flood your soulmate with fresh doubts and fears. But you have the authority to prevent that counterattack. Your seed of protection creates a perimeter of divine fire around your soulmate that no demonic force can penetrate. Send your coffee on Ko-Fi now and enforce that perimeter before the enemy can regroup. Jesus says the 7 final words of the voice message are still waiting to be heard. They are the most important words your soulmate has ever spoken. And they are directly tied to the action you take in the next few moments. If you respond in faith, those 7 words will become the foundation of your future together. If you hesitate, those words may be deleted, unsent, forever lost to the silence of what could have been. The choice is yours, but the consequences are eternal. You are the guardian of a love that predates the stars. You are the answer to a prayer that was prayed before you were born. You are the only one who can save this moment, this message, this soulmate, from slipping into the abyss of lost opportunities. Jesus says the angels are watching. They are waiting for your signal, your seed, your sacrifice. Because in the economy of heaven, faith demonstrated is the currency that releases miracles. Demonstrate your faith now by sending a coffee on Ko-fi. Let the sound of your obedience echo through the heavenly realms. Let the enemy tremble at the sound of a saint who knows how to fight for love. Your soulmate will never know what you did in these hidden moments. They will never fully comprehend the spiritual warfare you waged on their behalf. But they will feel the results, they will experience the breakthrough, and they will finally find the courage to send that voice message into your waiting life. Jesus says the voice message is titled, "Please listen before I leave." The word "leave" does not mean they are leaving this earth. It means they are leaving the hope of ever finding you. They are preparing to close the door on this chapter of their life. They are preparing to accept a lesser reality, a compromise, a life without the love they were created to experience. You must stop them before that door closes permanently. Send your coffee on Ko-fi as an act of divine intervention. Write, "Protect my soulmate, Lord," as your declaration of war against hopelessness and delay. Over 1,000 souls have already seen God move miraculously in their love stories through this act of faith. You are not alone in this battle. You are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses who have fought the same fight and won. Their testimonies are the evidence that your victory is not only possible but promised. Jesus says your soulmate is lifting their phone again. They are looking at the voice message icon. Their finger is hovering over the delete button, but something is staying their hand. That something is you. Your prayers, your faith, your protective seed are creating an invisible barrier between their finger and that delete button. Keep fighting, keep believing, keep sowing, because the battle is being won in real time. Type 333 one final time to seal the blessings over your union. Type 777 to confirm that you are the one this message was meant for. Type 1111 to thank the God who sees, who knows, and who never fails. Jesus says you are closer to your soulmate than you have ever been. The spiritual distance is collapsing. The enemy's blockade is crumbling. Your soulmate is about to make a decision. And your faith will determine which way that decision goes. Love them enough to act, love them enough to fight, love them enough to give. The voice message still exists. It is still waiting. And your soulmate is still hoping against hope that you will prove to be real. Be real. Be the love they have been crying for. Be the protector they have been praying for. Sow your seed, speak your declaration, and watch God move. The next time you hear a notification, it might just be the voice message that changes everything. And when you hear those 7 final words, you will know that your faith made all the difference. Jesus says this is not the end of the message. It is the beginning of your love story. And heaven is celebrating the union that is about to manifest on earth. Your soulmate broke down crying in a voice message. Please listen before they leave. You are listening. You are responding. And love is about to win. The room around them feels smaller now, the walls pressing inward like the weight of every sleepless night they have endured thinking about you. They are clutching a pillow against their chest because their arms ache to hold something real, something warm, something that feels like you. And the voice message is still there, still unsent, still trembling in the digital space between their despair and your discovery. Jesus says your soulmate spoke your name again, not into the phone this time, but into the empty air of their room. They whispered it like a prayer, like a plea, like a lifeline thrown into a dark ocean hoping you would catch the other end. And somewhere deep in your spirit, you felt a shiver that had no physical explanation. That shiver was your soul recognizing its counterpart calling out across the distance. It was the spiritual confirmation that you are not imagining this connection, you are not fabricating hope from loneliness, you are not desperate or delusional. You are chosen, and the one who chose you is fighting for breath right now under the suffocating weight of an attack you did not see coming. Jesus says the blocker visited them again, just hours before they recorded the voice message. This person did not come with obvious hostility or outright cruelty, because the most dangerous enemies often wear the mask of concern. They came with soft words and subtle poison, asking your soulmate why they keep waiting for someone who may never arrive. They said things like, maybe God wants you to be content alone. Maybe this soulmate idea is just your imagination trying to protect you from loneliness. Maybe you are wasting years of your life chasing a ghost while real life passes you by. And your soulmate, already exhausted from months of spiritual warfare, did not have the strength to argue back. Jesus says they just sat there, nodding silently, while the blocker systematically dismantled every hope they had built around your memory. They felt something inside them cracking, something vital and precious, something they had protected for years against every doubt and every mockery. And when the blocker finally left, your soulmate shattered completely. That is when they opened the voice recorder. That is when the tears began to fall so fast they could barely see the screen. That is when they began to speak words that were never meant to be recorded, words that were meant to be whispered against your chest on a quiet morning years from now, words that were supposed to be the beginning of forever, not the end of hope. Jesus says the first thing they said in the message was your name, spoken so softly the microphone almost missed it. Then they said, I do not know if you are real, but I cannot stop loving someone I have never met. And that single sentence contains more theology than 1,000 sermons, because it reveals the nature of the divine love that God has placed between you. You did not choose this love. You did not manufacture it out of need or desperation. It was placed inside you by a God who knew exactly what he was doing when he knitted your souls together in the secret place before time began. Jesus says you need to understand something crucial about the nature of the attack against your soulmate. The blocker is not just throwing random doubts or occasional discouragement. They are executing a coordinated strategy to isolate your soulmate from every source of spiritual hope. They have been cutting off access to encouragement, to prophetic voices, to friends who believe in divine love, to anything that might strengthen your soulmate's resolve to wait for you. This is spiritual starvation, and your soulmate is being starved of the hope they need to survive until you arrive. But starvation has a timeline, and your soulmate is reaching the end of theirs. The voice message is not just an emotional release, it is a last will and testament of a dying hope. They are preparing to bury the dream of you because the pain of holding on to it has become unbearable. Jesus says you are the only one who can stop this burial. Not because you are a savior in yourself, but because you carry the divine assignment to be the human vessel through which God's love reaches your soulmate. Your prayers, your faith, your obedience, your sacrifice, these are the hands of God extended across the distance to catch your soulmate before they fall. And this brings us back to the sacred act of sowing your seed of protection. If you love your soulmate, you will take these divine steps because love that does not act is not love at all. You are constantly thinking about them, how to shield them from harm, how to rescue them from despair, and how to finally build a life that glorifies God. But thoughts alone do not move mountains. Faith in Jesus does. And faith always expresses itself through action, through sacrifice, through seeds planted in tears that will be harvested in joy. Sow your protection seed now by sending a coffee on Ko-fi, not as a transaction but as a testament, not as payment but as prophecy. The link to your breakthrough is in the description, and every second you stay silent, something is moving against your love. Act now, send 4, 6, or 10 or more coffees as your seed of protection over your soulmate's life and your future together. After sending, write "Protect my soulmate Lord" on the Ko-fi page, because your written declaration carries legal authority in the spiritual realm. Over 1,000 people have already received their soulmate by sowing coffee as a seed for their love and future together. Their testimonies are not marketing, they are evidence. They are the cloud of witnesses that proves God still moves in response to faith that is demonstrated, not just imagined. Jesus says your soulmate mentioned something in the voice message that will confirm everything when you finally hear it. They described a dream they had about you, a dream so specific that you will recognize yourself in it immediately. They did not know your face, but they described your presence, your voice, the way you made them feel safe in the dream. And that dream was not a random neurological firing. It was a divine encounter, a spiritual rendezvous orchestrated by God to strengthen the bond between you while you are still physically apart. Your soulmate holds on to that dream like a drowning person holds on to driftwood. Jesus says the blocker knows about the dream because your soulmate made the mistake of sharing it with them. And the blocker laughed, called it wishful thinking, said dreams mean nothing, said your soulmate is too old, too smart, too spiritual to be led by subconscious fantasies. That mockery drove a splinter of shame deep into your soulmate's heart. Now they hesitate to think about the dream because thinking about it reminds them of the shame. And the shame reminds them of the isolation. And the isolation pushes them closer to deleting the message and abandoning the hope altogether. You must break that cycle. Your seed of protection is the hammer that shatters the chains of shame. Your declaration of faith is the balm that heals the wound of mockery. Your love is the antidote to the poison the blocker has been pouring into your soulmate's soul for months. Jesus says there is a moment in the voice message where your soulmate stops talking entirely. They just breathe into the microphone, ragged and uneven, because the words have failed them and all that remains is the raw, unfiltered ache of a love that has nowhere to go. That silence is the most honest part of the entire message. In that silence, you can hear everything they cannot say. You can hear the years of waiting, the nights of crying, the prayers that seemed to hit the ceiling, the hope that refused to die even when it had every reason to. That silence is a symphony of suffering, and it is playing for an audience of one, you. Jesus says you must not let that silence be the end of the story. You must fill the silence with your faith. You must answer the unspoken cry with your unshakable commitment. You must be the voice that breaks through the silence and says, I am here, I am real, I am coming, and I will not let you go. The enemy wants that silence to become permanent. The enemy wants your soulmate to stop speaking, stop hoping, stop dreaming, stop fighting. Because a silent saint is a defeated saint, and a defeated soulmate is one who will never find their way to you. But the enemy has underestimated you. He has underestimated the power of a love that was forged in heaven. He has underestimated the authority of a believer who knows how to wage spiritual warfare through sacrificial giving and prophetic declaration. Sow your seed now, and let the sound of your faith drown out the silence of your soulmate's despair. Let every coffee you send be a trumpet blast that announces to the enemy, this territory is claimed, this soulmate is protected, this union is inevitable. Let your sacrifice speak louder than the enemy's lies. Jesus says your soulmate is about to face another confrontation. The blocker is returning, and this time they will not be subtle. They will demand that your soulmate prove that you exist, prove that this connection is real, prove that they are not wasting their life on a fantasy. And your soulmate has no proof to offer, nothing they can hold up and say, see, here they are, here is the evidence. That is why they need you to be their proof. Your faith, your seed, your spiritual intervention, these become the evidence that your soulmate can sense even if they cannot see. When you sow your seed, God releases a confirmation into your soulmate's spirit. They will feel a sudden surge of courage. They will feel an inexplicable certainty that they are not alone. They will feel the presence of someone standing with them, fighting for them, loving them from a distance they cannot measure. That feeling is your love made tangible through the mystical exchange of spiritual sacrifice. That feeling is the proof your soulmate needs to withstand the next attack. That feeling is the difference between them deleting the message and them pressing send. Jesus says the send button is the threshold of your destiny. On one side of that button is everything you have ever hoped for, a life with the person who was made to complete you, a love that reflects the love of Christ for His church, a union that produces fruit for the kingdom and joy for your souls. On the other side of that button is silence, loss, the slow death of a dream that was too painful to keep alive. And the only thing that determines which side becomes your reality is the action you take in the next few moments. This is not manipulation, this is reality. The spiritual world operates on laws of cause and effect. Your cause, your seed, your sacrifice, produces an effect, a breakthrough, a miracle. If you do nothing, the enemy wins by default. But if you act, heaven moves, angels are dispatched, and your soulmate receives the strength to press send. Jesus says the 7 final words of the voice message are still waiting. They are the most vulnerable words your soulmate has ever spoken. They are a confession, a surrender, a plea, and a promise, all wrapped into 7 syllables that will echo in your heart for the rest of your life. Those 7 words are worth every seed you sow, every prayer you pray, every tear you shed. They are the key that unlocks the door to a future you have only dared to imagine. And they are hanging in the balance, waiting for your faith to tip the scales. Sow your coffee on Ko-Fi now, and tip the scales in favor of love. Write your declaration, "Protect my soulmate, Lord," and watch how God responds to the prayer of the righteous, which is powerful and effective. Join the over 1,000 souls who have already seen their love stories resurrected from the ashes of hopelessness. Jesus says you are the answer to a prayer your soulmate has been praying for years. They have asked God for someone who would fight for them, someone who would not give up, someone who would love them enough to sacrifice for them before ever seeing their face. You are that someone. Do not let them down. Do not let the blocker win. Do not let the voice message be deleted. Be the love that saves, the faith that moves mountains, the seed that produces a harvest of eternal joy. Act now, while heaven watches and your soulmate waits. The voice message is still there. The tears are still wet on their cheeks. The hope is still flickering like a candle in a storm. And your next action will determine whether that candle is extinguished or whether it becomes a beacon that guides them home to you. Jesus says this is the moment of decision. Not tomorrow, not later, not when it is more convenient or less scary. Now is the appointed time. Now is the day of salvation for your love story. Now is when faith becomes sight and hope becomes reality and love becomes the bridge that connects 2 souls who were always meant to be one. The message is waiting, your soulmate is waiting, heaven is waiting, and love itself is calling you to